Thank you for coming back to Got a Form for that, because we've got another form for you. And I'm going to share with you today an Ascension form. So Ascension is that time when the Christ has already been resurrected, and he is before this ascension happens, he is with the disciples for some period of time. And at ascension, then he appears to leave. And what is actually happening is he is becoming one with the evolution of the earth, because as he says, I will be with you always. And so he is here. The art that we see, there were a lot of Renaissance artists that painted the Ascension, and we see him, sort of floating up into the clouds. That is perhaps misleading, because it makes us think that, well, he went off to heaven, back to God, and he's gone. And that isn't actually the case, according to Rudolf Steiner. He really is still with us. He became sort of one, or began to become one with with earthly evolution at that time, and is still here with us. So Ascension is really something to celebrate. And there is not a verse in the calendar of the soul just for Ascension, but we can choose a verse that is for this period of time when Ascension is happening this year. So that's the one I will read. The sense's might grows strong, united with the God's creative work. It presses down my power of thinking into a dreamlike dullness. When godly being desires union with my soul, must human thinking in quiet dream life rest content. Rudolf Steiner. All right. So you'll want to get your things together, your paper, white paper, and a graphite pencil, and an eraser. And you will also want to get your blue pencil, and preferably a blue pencil that doesn't have green in it. All right. So to begin with this form, we're going to, again, hold your paper portrait rather than landscape, and create a rectangle that really fills up, let it fill up the whole page. And just leave a little margin. How's that? That looks all right. We're trying to make a golden rectangle, and a piece of printer paper of the standard size is a golden rectangle. So if you just draw your lines, a few centimeters in, or an inch or so in, from the top and bottom all the way around, you'll have a golden rectangle. And then you might want to take a ruler, or you could fold your paper so that there's a line showing from the top to the bottom. I'm going to use a ruler this time. From the center top to the center bottom. And as is usually the case, this is not part of the form. It's just gives us a basis for the for drawing the form. All right, so we have two main lines to do in this. We're going to also find the center here of that line and draw a horizontal line across. You can use a ruler for that if you like, or you can even fold your paper if you want to do that. So we have the paper divided into four golden rectangles. Okay, the first line is a series of loops that go around the form in that way. And the loops are fairly small, not tiny, but you know, they don't take up the whole line by any means. So you might want to put some dots here, and at the dots will be the intersection of the loop. And then you can go around and create your loops, kind of like teardrops. And then you may connect them with straight lines at those intersections so that when you trace the form, you know, it will be a continuous line. All right, and that's the first line of the form. And then the next one is, it's kind of a figure eight with a sort of this flowing gesture and a holding gesture at the bottom with just a loop at the top. And the intersection of that figure eight happens a little bit below the intersection of that loop, but not down here in the middle. And in fact, we don't really need the horizontal line anymore because it doesn't help us draw our form. You can leave it if you want, but we don't have to have that there. Okay, so now we have a dot here. We can make our loop, which is bigger than this little one up here. And then we continue this figure eight out here, and then it goes through the loop and then joins up with the upper loop like that. All right, so I've basically got the idea here, but I'm going to bring this up a bit so that this corner and this corner of this kind of holding gesture are at the same level. It's better, that is better. Bring that down a bit. Okay. And now we have the form. I'm going to erase the vertical line also now and do a better job on the horizontal line. Okay. Once we have our form, then we can trace over it with our colored pencil, and we're using a blue. The Lyra number 10 is a really good color for this. It doesn't have any green in it that I can tell. It seems very pure blue. And Prismacolor also has a blue that seems to be fairly free. Actually, it has several different blues that are fairly free of green. PC or Prismacolor 933 is a good one. So anyway, here I go. I'm going to draw the rectangle. then the loops. And then the large figure 8. Now, the Ascension period is for just 10 days. And after those 10 days, Whitsuntide happens, or which is short for White Sunday. It's also called Pentecost. And that's, a different season. So the Ascension form can be worked with for those 10 days between Easter and Pentecost. So I'm going to share again the verse with you. The senses' might grows strong, united with the God's creative work. It presses down my power of thinking into a dreamlike dullness. When godly being desires union with my soul, must human thinking in quiet dream life rest content. Rudolf Steiner. So I wish you a happy Ascension period. It can feel during this time that, everything around you is just expanding and in a way that is really true. So enjoy that wonderful feeling of expansion and union with the spiritual world. Again, the reason we use blue for drawing all of the forms in these first videos is that we begin then with working on the inmost being. The function of the form is shown in the form, and where it works in us is determined by the color. And the color blue that has no green works very deeply into that center of our being. So happy Ascension, and thanks again for joining me with Got a Form for That.